My name's Larry Ricker, and the aircraft in front of us is a Nieuport 11 replica. It's a replica of a World War II aircraft, Nieuport 11. It's a 7/8 scale aircraft, with the exception of the tail, which is full scale.
Why full scale tail, and yet the rest of the aircraft is 7/8 size?
Great question. Because we need more control. The bigger the tail, the more control you have. This is a very short coupled aircraft, and so as a result, it's like pushing a shopping cart backwards through the grocery store. You can do it slow, but when you get going fast, it has a tendency to swap ends.
This show is called MariTIME Machines. In a lot of ways, the play is on the time part, because these are time machines.
They are.
This is taking all of us back and teaching us about what it was like in aviation history.
100%.
This aircraft was only a few years after the first flight.
1909 was the first flight. These airplanes were built in 1916. So, you know, you think of it, it's 7 years after the dawn of aviation, and now they're taking them into war.
Now, this aircraft was manufactured or built where?
Independence, Oregon, about 15 years ago by 19 gentlemen, aviation enthusiasts, that had a great set of plans built by Graham Lee in Lamont, Alberta. They decided all 19 of them were going to build 19 airplanes all together. So they started construction, and they were very smart about it. They said, we're not going to decide whose airplane is whose, so everyone has to put the same degree of workmanship and accuracy into the design, you know, into the build, and at the end they drew straws to see whose airplane was whose.
Traditionally, ships have names.
Yes.
This aircraft has a name?
It does have a name.
And that name is?
Lucie.
And why is she called Lucie?
She's called Lucie because my wife is called Lucie. My wife came first, the airplane came next. And the reason that we named her Lucie is because in World War I, that's what pilots did. 15, 16, 17-year-old boys, they would hand paint the name of the aircraft after their mother, their sister, perhaps their girlfriend. And so it's a tradition that's been carried down. We wanted to show what it was like in World War I.
This aircraft is painted in a color to represent a country that is not Canada. Tell me a little bit about the design, the way it's appointed.
Okay, so the rondelles that you see on the wing and on the fuselage are different. If you'll notice on the wing, there's the red on the outside, white and blue. Mm-hmm. We've got the blue, white, and red.
So they're reversed.
So they're reversed. So here's why. This is the rondelle, the British rondelle. That is the French rondelle. And at one point in the war, they couldn't build enough airplanes fast enough to replace the ones that were either crashing or being shot down in the UK. So what they started doing is building some in France. So they started building the wings in France, the fuselages in the UK, and sometimes airplanes would end up with a French wing and a UK, and vice versa.
Is this modeled after a particular plane, or is it just in general that you knew the history and that's how it was designed?
We knew the history, and that's why we did it that way. But this aircraft was the first Canadian fighter. And Billy Bishop, in fact, a very famous Canadian ace, became an ace in this type of aircraft in World War I. His first 5 kills were flying a Nieuport 11.
Now, how did this one come into your life? You told me where it was built. How many years ago? When did this Lucie come into your life?
Those builders back in Independence, Oregon were great builders, but they were so-so pilots, and I hope, you know, with all due respect. So they were starting to have incidents, accidents, and they started to get a little bit scared flying them, so they sold them to a gentleman named Al Snowy. He became a skipper, our skipper of Vimy Flight. It was his idea to form up a team of ex-Royal Canadian Air Force pilots. We all trusted each other in close formation. We knew the training that we all had, and so we decided to do that. But Alan bought 4 of them, put them together out in British Columbia, and started flying them with a group of 4 pilots. And then he had the idea, why not do the 100th anniversary of the Battle of Vimy Ridge in 2017? Let's get more pilots. So we got a total of 10 pilots for Vimy Flight. We started training in 2016, and we got better, and we started flying formation of 2 aircraft first, then 3 aircraft, and then eventually 4 aircraft within 2 or 3 feet of each other. And then we had to get the airplanes to France.
How did you do that? How did you obviously didn't fly them.
No,
To France?
no, we would never make it. You know,
Right.
100 miles offshore Canada, we'd be done, right? But fortuitously, the commander of the Air Force, Mike Hood, was a personal friend of mine. He was actually my crew member flying T-33s in the Air Force. So I phoned up Mike and I said, I got a crazy idea. Would you consider giving us a Globemaster, a C-17 Globemaster, to use to go from Comox to Lille, France in the spring of 2017 so that we can fly 5 aircraft over Vimy Ridge for the 100th anniversary? And he didn't say no. We took 7 of these aircraft, had a couple of spares, over to Lille, France in March of that year, 2017, and they put them in the airplane sideways. If the airplane's going this way, C-17, one's this way, one's this way, one's this way, and then fit them all in whole. We just had to take the rudders off.
Right. Now, you alluded to T-33. I'm looking at your patch. I'm looking at this. You served for how long?
22 years as a reservist in the Canadian Forces, 10 years on trackers, 11 years on T-33s here in Nova Scotia.
How did that feel being at Vimy at the 100th for that flyover?
That's a great question. Here's what we did. We had a whole month to prepare. So we wanted to get in theater, if I can say it that way, to get used to the area, to get used to flying over Vimy Ridge and do some practice flights. So we started doing the first flights when guys came in. We had the airplanes there. Guys would come in and I would take them out, or Alan would take them out as a 2-ship, and we would just say, you know, we're going to fly across the Vimy Ridge. We wanted you to just to take some time and see what this is all about. And for every single pilot, when they came back, they said, I cried. It's just so emotional to be there in the air around that amazing structure. And so it was emotional.
I'm Sheldon McLeod. This is Maritime Machines, and we're at Air Show Atlantic here on Eastlink. Where does Lucie live? Not your wife, but this Lucie.
This Lucie is now living at the New Brunswick Aviation Museum. We donated the airplane to them last year, and that's up in Miramichi, New Brunswick. People can go see it at any time up there.
We have a facility in Miramichi, New Brunswick.
So where is this museum located, Kevin?
The museum's located at the former air base in Chatham, which is now Miramichi, New Brunswick.
Okay, and how did Lucie come into your life?
Well, actually, it was at an air show a couple of years ago, and it was in Greenwood, actually, 2019, the last time there was an air show out here. Anyway, I ran into Larry at the air show in Greenwood in 2019, and he had mentioned that he was looking to donate the aircraft, and he was really interested in seeing it go to us at the museum in New Brunswick. At the time, we didn't actually have a place to store it. I had everything that I'd collected over the last several years was stored in my basement, waiting for a place. And so when I found out that he wanted to donate it to us, we had to get a location. So things worked out last year, and we were able to, we got a significant donation from the Beaverbrook Canadian Foundation, and it allowed us to move into a hangar at the former airport there in Chatham.
Is there a historical connection of Nieuport to that area, community at all, or is it just an opportunity to help highlight and show people the history of aviation?
Well, basically the fact that Larry was from Moncton and flew this Nieuport over Vimy Ridge for the 100th anniversary of the battle there in 2017. That's a significant story on its own. As far as the Nieuports, we did have a lot of New Brunswickers that served in the Royal Flying Corps, Royal Naval Air Service, and the Royal Air Force in the First World War. So it definitely has ties to our First World War story, and we're very lucky because there's not a lot of places that have these reproduction First World War aircraft.
Well, I think even more importantly is a lot of static displays are just that. This is a static display that also is at an air show that people can see up close. What kind of reaction do people have when they see this?
Well, actually, this is the first time it's going to be at an air show that it's belonged to the museum. So it's something that we'd made the agreement with Larry that when he donated it to us, we wanted to keep it flying, using it as a sort of a signature exhibit for us to help get us publicity for the museum. Because again, this was our first summer that we were actually open, so it was something to the people that come out here, they're probably not even aware that we have a museum in New Brunswick. So it's going to be a good chance to see what kind of publicity it generates for us. Started my career at the Air Base in Chatham back in the mid-'80s, and when I finished my career, I was in Gagetown and I was in charge of the New Brunswick Military History Museum on the base. And when I retired in 2013, that's when I started the process to create the New Brunswick Aviation Museum. So
were you on the ground in support, or were you in the air?
I actually did both. I started off as a weapons technician when I was in Chatham, and so I worked at Trackety Air Range, and I worked at what they call the bomb dump. And I'd gotten out after my initial 3 years, got back in, became a navigator. So I was at 405 Squadron on the Auroras for a few years. And as I said, I got around a little bit after that, and then finished my career, funny enough, in an Army base and in charge of the military museum there. So,
what is it that you want to leave people with after they come to the air show Atlantic and they see this aircraft and they know that there's a continuation of history from well, obviously the replica here, but the history that was given to your museum through Larry himself?
Well, our motto has been honoring our past and inspiring our future. So the big part about the historical story is to let kids know that people from New Brunswick have done this in the past. Now it's your turn to take it and carry it into the future. So even things like showcasing something like this, the basic technology that was used, to what we have today, especially if we go into the F-35, that's a huge leap in basically just 100 years. So it's something that the next generation, it's hard to say what they will get into.
Kevin, thank you very much. Continued success with the museum.
Great, thank you very much.
Awesome. I see these little trucks with X's. What's the story under Lucie's name with that?
So air shows are all about having a lot of fun. So a few years ago, we've been doing air show Atlantic for quite a while. And Colin Stevenson, the director of the air show, and we had a discussion, we should have a race. And that led to the first race, and I beat him quite handily. So my chief technician, the maintenance engineer, Dan Daigle, who lives in Greenwood, decided to paint an X with a golf cart on there. So we've done 2 other races. I've won all 3, and I understand Colin is quite upset about this. And so now he's challenged me once again this year, and I think he's set for revenge.
And how many times do you have to beat the ATV to get your ace designation?
5.
We're getting closer. We're getting closer.
Right, and the Defender is tough enough to handle any task when you have industry-leading towing capacity and storage space. Heavy work that's a whole lot lighter with this vehicle. It's perfect for farming, hunting, or exploring, and the race is on, folks. As you can see from our left, we've got the Nieuport just above the runway, and Colin Stevenson has got the pedal to the metal on the Defender. Who is going to win this race? It looks like it's neck and neck, but I think the Nieuport is in the lead, but here comes Colin, and I think we're going to give it to Colin in the Defender.
Oh, I understand you had a race with a school bus once.
I did. You heard about this?
I heard about this. It's legendary.
Yeah, well...
embarrassing, maybe?
Slightly embarrassing. We were on the prairies. There's a pretty good headwind, and I saw a school bus down below me, and he was stopping and letting off kids. And as I approached him, he let out some kids. He looks up at me, he gives me a shake of his fist, and he passes me. Lets off some more kids, lets me go by. I know what's coming, and he goes by me again. So a little bit of a hit on the ego, but it was great for his ego, and just fun, right?
And I'm sure if the kids had an opportunity to watch and witness, it would give them an opportunity to ask questions about history.
For sure.
And aircraft,
for sure.
Aeronautics. And as far as how quick, how fast this aircraft is, or how slow it might be?
Exactly. So I'll take off, I'll have the tail up at about 30 miles an hour. I'll be airborne at probably 40. The airplane stalls at about 37 sort of thing. And I can in level flight I can get up to 75 miles an hour. In a descent I can get to a little over 90, but it works. But you know, the thing is, this is what they had to work with and go fight with in World War I.
Larry, we're standing at the front of Lucie, and I see honoring Red Mullock of Winnipeg. We talk about bringing the past to the present and beyond. Tell me about Red.
He was, as you see, the first naval ace in World War I. Very interesting gentleman, very successful, and each of the aircraft that we flew, we dedicated to one of the aces. A lot of people don't know that there was a Naval Air Division alongside the Flying Division, and in fact, the Royal Canadian Air Force wasn't even created yet. It was actually called the Royal Canadian Flying Corps as part of the Army, because the Army generals weren't too sure that there was a place in the war for aviation.
You say that it's a challenge to fly, Lucie, yes. And I'm looking at the step to climb into the cockpit, and it's, well, it looks like it belongs on a horse.
Exactly right, because here's what the general said. If we must fly those contraptions in World War I, they will be mounted from the left as you mount a horse.
Or a motorcycle.
Or a motorcycle. And that's led through future years to captains of aircraft, any captain of a commercial aircraft. As a captain, you sit on the left-hand side, and the first officer would sit on the right. And that's how it came to being that everything started with a left step.
Looking at the way that the two wings are constructed, there's an arrow in the middle on both sides. What's the story there?
Essentially to hold the wires together so that they don't chafe one another. There's a set of flying wires and there's a set of ground wires. So basically one set holds the wings from going up and the other set holds the wings from going down, and they holds them in the center.
Now, unlike modern aircraft, this is a fixed pitch propeller.
It is.
How does that challenge a pilot?
It doesn't give you the same capability as a variable pitch propeller. So in other words, you can either have a really good climb prop, which allows you to climb quicker, or you can have a cruise prop, more of a pitch, if you will, to allow you to go faster in cruise. So this is a combination of the two. So it's good for climbing, and it's also good for cruise.
Now, the engine in this particular aircraft is a Volkswagen.
Volkswagen engine.
A Brazil-made 60 horsepower VW air-cooled engine.
Exactly right, yeah.
And why is this a 7/8 when you're obviously looking at expenditure? Is it cheaper? Is it less money? Why not go the whole distance? It's
Why not go the other 8?
It's only that much more.
Exactly right. And the reason was, at the time, this was the best engine that they could get for this particular design. So the design was actually built with that in mind. And so 7/8 was all that little engine could haul. Since then, there's been a lot of increases in technology, new development of engines, which are much more powerful and lighter. But at the time, this is what they had. This is what we worked with.
You actually took this plane, you flew it across Canada at one point?
We flew it across Canada starting in Nova Scotia. We flew for Ottawa at the for Canada Day. We flew across Parliament Hill, and I led 39 other aircraft, RCAF aircraft, across Parliament Hill. This being the slowest. F-18s were behind me, the Tudors, the Snowbirds, everybody else was much faster, so we had to organize it well so that no one came up from behind.
Or stalled.
Or stalled, exactly right.
How long did it take you?
5 months.
Really?
5 months. We had some challenges. We had a couple of accidents along the way. We had a lot of weather issues. We actually had to take them apart and put them in trailers to take them in certain areas where it's really remote. We just couldn't get there. But we flew most of the way, and it was great because we drop into little communities. We give them advance notice in social media, and so we'd arrive at a community like Kerrobert in Saskatchewan. There'd be 500 people there. The road going into the airport would be lined up for a mile. So it was a big deal, and a lot of people just came out and we would tell the story of Vimy Ridge.
This is a replica, obviously, and I assume that's not a real weapon on the
No, sir.
the top wing?
No.
So that's a replica of the type of weapon that would have been installed?
It's a Lewis machine gun. It had 35 rounds on it with the casing up top there, the chamber. And they took this into battle, and at first they tried putting it down lower, but they shot off a prop, so that didn't work out so well. They didn't have the interrupter gear designed yet, so it would shoot the bullets out when the prop wasn't in front. So what they had to do is mount it on the wing, and they didn't even have the ability to slide the gun down to change the magazine. So what a pilot would have to do is reach up, as you see there's a trigger there, reach up and pull single, to shoot the bullets. And that was very challenging because when it came time to change the magazine, the pilot had to leave the fight, go away, find a place that was safe, and stand up, unstrap, stand up, unscrew the magazine because it was threaded on, put the spent magazine down, and if he dropped it, they would actually dock his pay. So they didn't want to do that.
Right.
And get a full one, get back up there and screw it on, and in all the time he's flying with the stick between his knees. Just imagine 8,000 feet up, no parachute, doing that. And the worst part is that the enemy knew that. The enemy, oh, he's going away, he's out of bullets, he's going to stand up in a minute, it was a good time to go shoot him.
Right.
In one case, there was a fellow named Lieutenant Strange, very easy to remember that name, who had to do that. There was a flight of 20, dogfight going on, 20 aircraft, British, French, Canadians, of course Germans, fighting together. And Lieutenant Strange left the fight to change his magazine. As he's trying to take the magazine off, he realized it was cross-threaded. And while he was trying to jerk it to get the magazine off, he lost control of the aircraft. The aircraft went inverted into an inverted flat spin towards the ground from 8,000 feet. Now imagine this, there's 20 other guys in the fight, and all of a sudden there's a guy hanging from an airplane, and they're all going, hey, you don't see that every day. They all stopped fighting, and now they're all circling to see what's going to happen to Lieutenant Strange. He was trying to get back in the airplane, but it was above him. It was spinning towards the ground. Eventually, he got a foot in the cockpit, trying to get back in, and just then the airplane flipped over. He reversed. He went down through the cockpit, wicker seat. He went through the seat, through the fabric in the bottom, and now he's outside the aircraft. He's upside down. The airplane's upside right. He finally got out, got it sorted out, and he pulled out 100 feet above the ground.
And lived to tell a tale no one would believe unless they saw.
He lived to finish the war, and I always tell people that story because if you ever think you're having a bad day, just remember Lieutenant Strange, it's not so bad whatever's going on in your life.
All of that brought about because of the way that he was forced to reload this weapon.
Absolutely.